As you can see, the title is the Black Panther Party is a movement for accurate representation of black people in the media. And so what I like to do, if you can get the lights off too, that might be helpful, make it a little bit better. What I like to do, can you get the lights off?
Oh, completely off.
Yeah, I think it makes it better. So what I like to do is to focus on the Black Panther Party as an organization that we can look at and we can examine in terms of its history, its origins, how we dealt with the media, some of the things that it did that were pretty good, and you can also talk about some of the mistakes and errors. There's a few parts of this presentation towards the end that I need to apologize for because I was not able to get the research that I needed based on some things that had happened here in Pittsburgh several years ago. But some of you may remember, some of you may not, I'm not sure. Anyway, moving along. So, in terms of the table of contents, introduction to the Black Panther Party, the media response to the Black Panther Party, the Black Panther Party's response to the media, and examples and applications of the lessons learned. And those examples and the applications are lessons that I've been able to internalize during my development and things that I've been able to use throughout the last 50 years. So, an introduction to the Black Panther Party, historical background and context. The Black Panther Party was founded by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale in October of 1966. In 1966, the Civil Rights Movement was still an active movement, but the Civil Rights Movement was starting to decline in its appeal to growing numbers of young people, especially growing numbers of young black people. And the Civil Rights Movement, based on its philosophy and ideology of nonviolence as a stratagem or a tactic, was not very popular amongst Northern youth. Many young people from the North, especially those who grew up in very harsh living conditions, they gravitated more towards the philosophies of people like Malcolm X, who emphasized the importance of not just black pride, but self-determination and the right to exercise self-defense. So in 1966, the Civil Rights Movement was still a very powerful engine for social change amongst black people and all folks around the country, those who supported it. But it was starting to lose its appeal to many black youth. Martin Luther King himself had made a trip to Los Angeles not too long, I believe, after the Watts Rebellion. And the Watts Rebellion, I believe, was in 1965. And he had made a trip to Los Angeles. And the young folks there, they didn't look at civil rights the way that Dr. King looked at it. They were more concerned with dealing with issues of police brutality, dealing with issues of housing discrimination, and so forth and so on. So we have the Black Power movement, as it came to be known, was officially announced around 1965. And there was a gentleman named Mukasa, we call him Mukasa Ricks. And, he was a colleague of Stokely Carmichael. He was really the one who used the term Black Power originally. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how do you spell his name?
Mukasa Ricks would be spelled M-U-K-A-S-A. His last name is Ricks. I can't remember his birth name, you know, but we now call him Mukasa Ricks. He was part of SNCC, along with Stokely Carmichael. So he was the one who had originally coined the term Black Power. Stokely Carmichael was the one who made it a very popular term. But they were both comrades and both members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or Student National Coordinating Committee, as it came to call itself a little later on. when it decided to walk away from nonviolence as a tactic. So, another key thing that led to the founding and development of the Black Panther Party was the death of Malcolm X. Malcolm was killed on February 21st of 1965. And that was another crucial moment that led to more and more young people, especially those from the North, becoming disillusioned with the ideals of nonviolence as a stratagem or tactic to be used in pursuit of civil rights or in pursuit of basically dismantling Jim Crow. A key organization is called the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, which really was the original Black Panthers, and we'll talk about that. Also, we'll talk about the founders of the Black Panther Party, the early years, the beginnings, the international climate, which was very important. It's 1966, this is the Cold War period between the two superpowers, the United States of America versus the USSR. And both were competing for the hearts and minds of the people, especially those people who had been newly freed from European imperialism and colonialism. This is the post-World War II period. And so you had these two different ideologies, these two different social economic systems that were competing to try to bring as many people under their umbrella as possible. And then there was the popular media. And this is very important because the media then is strikingly different from the media that you deal with today. Back in 1966, you had basically 3 network stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And then you also had public television, depending on what part of the country that you lived in. If you lived in Pittsburgh, you lived in Philadelphia, if you lived in Boston, Massachusetts, then you had very strong access to public television. If you lived in some other parts of this country, you didn't even have public television. It wasn't developed yet. If I'm not mistaken, public television as we know it, WQED, originated here from Western Pennsylvania. And then it was picked up by Philadelphia, it was picked up by Boston, Massachusetts. So you had 3 major TV stations or networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. You had a limited number of radio stations, right? Radio was still very big, especially with the generation that had grown up or came of age between World War I and World War II. Many of those folks got their news and information through radio. So that's very important to understand in terms of how you interact with the media. Contrast that with today's situation, right? Where activists today, you have 200 plus different television stations through cable TV. Not only do you have NBC, CBS, and ABC, you got Fox News, and you got a whole bunch of variations or spin-offs from all the main TV stations as well. And now you have what? Internet radio. Not just the regular radio, you turn it down, now you got the internet access as well. So you have multimedia platforms from which to work, from which to organize, but also that could make you subject to criticism, that could make you subject to manipulation, that can make you subject to exploitation, as well as stereotype. So, we talk about the Black Panther Party. If you look at the photo to your left, those are the original 6 members of the Black Panther Party. Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, little Bobby Hutton is the young man kneeling with the glasses, has on the black leather jacket. He was actually a young person who was part of a program that Bobby Seale had put together. It was one of those urban development type of programs for young people. And so little Bobby Hutton was one of his young proteges. And he was a young person who was involved in those type of programs. And then you have the Forte brothers. You have Sherman, and you have his brother Reggie. And then you see all the way in the background It's a dark-skinned brother with the black beret. His name is Big Man, Elder Big Man Howard, who unfortunately passed away just a few months ago. And then you see the classic photo to your immediate right, which was taken in front of the Panther office with Huey Newton with the shotgun and the bandolier, and Bobby Seale with the 45. And then in the middle, you see a photograph which is like a montage of different leaders and different key figures throughout the Black Panther Party. Eldridge Cleaver, Kathleen Cleaver, Angela Davis, Fred Hampton, Stokely Carmichael, Mumia, H. Rap Brown, so forth and so on. So, what was the media's response to the Black Panther Party? Well, the media's response was initially sensationalism. Number one, Sacramento, California demonstration in 1967 in the Black Panther Party in response to a proposed change in the state law about people being allowed to openly carry their weapons. The Black Panther Party pushed back and they led a rally, not a rally, they led a protest up to the state capitol, which is Sacramento, and they went into the state capitol building armed to try to make a point. Now, we all realize that this legislation that was being proposed, which by the way was indeed passed, was only proposed and passed as a reaction or response to the Black Panther Party. The fact that the Black Panther Party, Huey Newton, in the lead, understood that the state law, backed up by the U.S. Constitution, Second Amendment, right, allowed people to police the police and allow people to carry arms, allow people to openly carry arms. And so when the Black Panther Party would be confronted by the open police, Huey and other Panthers who had been instructed and taught would just basically recite the law. They would start out by reciting the U.S. Constitution, Second Amendment, and then they would recite the state law for the state of California. And so the police were kind of in a bind. They didn't know what to do. And so the Black Panthers also knew the law to the extent of how far they needed to be from the police when the police were doing whatever they were supposed to be doing, right? So that created a lot of tension and created a lot of frustration from the law enforcement community as well as the politicians. So what did the politicians decide to do? They changed the law, period. And so the Black Panther Party pushed back by having a protest demonstration, and they literally rolled into the state capitol fully armed. The second thing, in terms of sensationalism, as far as how the media responded to the Black Panther Party, we look at the 1967 shooting involving Huey Newton and Oakland police officers. One of those police officers got killed, and another one got severely wounded. The officer who got killed was Officer Fry. So the way that the media responded to that was a lot of sensationalism. You know, the Black Panther Party is coming, they're gonna kill all the cops, they're gonna kill all the white people, that kind of foolishness. A third example is when the Black Panther Party held its Revolutionary People Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1970, and how the local police department, under the leadership of Rizzo, as well as the local corporate business community, came out in full force against the Black Panther Party. But the people supported the Black Panther Party. Not just the black community, the brown community, the white community, the students, the radicals, the religious people, they all stood up and supported the Black Panther Party. Even though the city officials were against the Black Panther Party having that convention back in those days. The criminalization of the Black Panther Party. Any response or any resistance to racism, police brutality, and police violence was criminalized. So the Black Panther Party was not just a protest, demonstrate, social program type of organization. The Black Panther Party firmly believed in black people's rights to self-defense, and it practiced that. Like I tell people sometimes, and I don't mind saying this in public, when people say, well, the police shoot somebody, you gotta watch out because it could be a riot. Brother Khalid, what do you think about that? And I said, well, in the Black Panther Party, we were taught never to support riots at all, never. And folks said, what do you mean by that? I just tell them up front. In the Black Panther Party, we weren't taught to riot, we were taught to retaliate. There's a fundamental difference between the two. So, activities coming from the Black Panther Party in terms of any type of response or resistance to racism, police brutality, or police violence was always criminalized, regardless of whether the cause was just or not just. There was a serious collusion with the government, law enforcement, and corporate interests, for example, through COINTELPRO, which is the U.S. government counterintelligence program, which targeted radicals, revolutionaries, and dissidents. It was a collusion amongst those forces to do everything they possibly could to minimize the impact and to distort the message coming from the Black Panther Party, and to continue to characterize black people as being lazy, stupid, backward, and helpless. We did just the opposite. We did everything we could to uplift our people. So now let's look at how this kind of played out. These are some examples of how the media responded to the Black Panther Party. If you look to your immediate left, that's the front page of the local paper up in Sacramento. It says the Capitol is invaded. The press corps draws the ire of the legislature. State police halt armed Negro band. They would have been talking about us. So that was in 1967, in the early part of 67. You see the photo right underneath that, there's Huey P. Newton. He's on the stretcher. He's been shot in the stomach. He had a shootout with the police in Oakland. We're not too clear about the circumstances even to this day, but it was some type of altercation. And because the cops back in those days were so unaccustomed to black people fighting back, they were unaccustomed to black men or black women fighting back. So they rolled in and they didn't roll out. Huey got shot in the stomach, one of the cops got killed, other cop got critically injured. That was the beginning of what came to be known as the Free Huey movement, which is another example of how we utilize the media in order to raise people's awareness and consciousness, and also to use it as a vehicle or platform from which to organize. In the center, you see Huey raising his fist. That's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's at Temple University in 1970. We had the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention. And there's Huey when he came to Philly to give a speech. Some of the people around Huey are also members of the Central Committee. The brother with the glasses to the far left was actually Brother Emory Douglas, who's still living to this day. He was the Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party. He was the one who created all the famous posters and all the famous artwork. Then right below, because all this stuff happened around the same time, just to give you some backdrop, Huey was released from prison in 1970, in the late part of the summer. He was released from prison in the summer of 1970. And we already knew we were going to have the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention. There was already a lot of pushback coming from the media, coming from the mayor, Rizzo, coming from the police department, and coming from the status quo. So they were doing everything they possibly could to discourage people from coming out for this convention, and they were doing everything they possibly could to discourage the black community from supporting us. And this is exactly what happened. They did everything they could, we did everything we could to keep moving on. Well, we wound up having a convention anyway. Huey came home from prison, it was on the schedule, he made a special trip to Philadelphia, and he spoke at the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention. But in between time, this is what was happening in Philadelphia. You notice how like I show you the national stuff and then the local stuff. So meanwhile, what was happening in Philly is this. Rizzo and his administration was still brutalizing the black community. And there was indeed a insane case involving a young black man who, as we used to use the term back in those days, we would say he was mentally handicapped, he was mentally retarded. And the police had stopped him and accused him of committing a crime that he didn't commit. He didn't have the capacity to commit. And they killed him, right? And so I guess they thought that was going to be the end of it, but it wasn't. And so what happened is that about 6 cops got shot, 1 got killed, 2 or 3 was on critical condition. So if you see in the bottom, they raided our offices. At that time, we had 4 offices in Philly. We had an office in North Philly, West Philly, South Philly, and Germantown. And so they raided the offices in Germantown, North Philly, and in West Philly. So you see the brother right there who's shirtless. There's another brother behind him, and then you see the 2 pigs who are escorting him around. And I use that term pigs not loosely because in 1970, the Philadelphia police force, they were pigs. You know, I'm not talking about all police officers. I'm talking about the cops in 1970 in Philadelphia under the guidance and under the jurisdiction of Rizzo, they were indeed pigs. And so you see the 2 brothers there. They came from, I believe they came from the South Philly office, if I'm not mistaken. And then you see the brothers over there, that was us on the side. They stripped the brothers and sisters from our office. Now you may not notice there's a sister on the side there too. Right? They didn't strip search her, but they strip searched us. That was the West Philly office. That's the office that I belong to. I belong to the West Philly office. So when they came, there was some banging going on. They raided the office about 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. They started shooting. They got shot back at, right? So after everything was said and done, they were searching for guns and all that. So they made everybody strip search. That was in the West Philly office. So these are my friends. These are my comrades. The brother with no shirt, who's passed away, his name is, let's call him JT. And the brother in the back is Billy O. And then the guys from West Philly, those are all my comrades from the West Philly office as well. Okay. So that's to give you an idea of how the media responded to the Black Panther Party. Now, this is our response to the media. Our response to them was multifaceted, right? We responded, first of all, by developing community-based political education classes. Second of all, by having a community outreach program. And then by having and establishing and expanding different community programs. Free breakfast for school, the Free Breakfast for School Children program being one, and probably the one that is most known. And also we had what we call like a liberation school. We also established a ministry of information. We developed the Black Community News Service, which published as well as distributed the Black Panther newspaper, which, by the way, at some point back in 1970, 1971, the Black Panther newspaper had a distribution of somewhere between 125,000 to 150,000 every week. We had a distribution system. And not only did we sell copies here in the United States, we sold copies in different countries around the world. We organized press conferences and we distributed press releases as well to counter whatever narrative was coming from the traditional media. We utilized the campus environment with demonstrations as well as lectures to spread our message, to organize the people, to raise the people's awareness and consciousness about the true nature of the Black Panther Party, but the true nature of their day-to-day struggle. We also formed coalitions and we developed cooperation with other groups, organizations, as well as radical media. That's very, very important. We never saw ourselves as a standalone group or organization. We always recognized that we were part of not just a national movement, but an international movement for revolutionary change. And here's some of the photos and pictures to demonstrate that. So when we talk about developing our ministry of information, if you look to your far left corner, that was our Minister of Information, Eldridge Cleary. The first issue of the Black Panther Party is what you see right there. It was just 2 sheets of paper, right, that folks had put together, and it was about this young man who was murdered by the police, Denzel Dowd, and that was in 1967. And then locally, within the Philadelphia area, you may not recognize the young brother at the top in the middle. That's Raheem, when he was a teenager, and he was our lieutenant of information for the Black Panther Party. And if you look right below, that's one of his products. It says Ministry of Information Bulletin number 2. That's something that Raheem would have put together. Even as a teenager, he was like light years ahead of most guys. The gentleman in the right-hand corner, his name is Bradford Smith, or Bradford Jones. He had a couple of elders. He's a Smith and Jones thing, but his real name is Brad Jones. And he's one of my close comrades from back in the day. And that's at the breakfast program for children. Underneath that, now all this is Philadelphia stuff. Underneath that, we had put together something called a committee against fascism. Now we had the National Committee to Combat Fascism, which was called the NCCF. And we had an NCCF here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Oftentimes the NCCF would be the precursor to the development of a full-blown chapter for the Black Panther Party. Originally the NCCFs were made up of people from various backgrounds who supported the Black Panther Party, but who also realized how important it was to be organized and fight back and push back against fascism as we defined fascism back in those days. And so the NCCFs were made up, again, of all different types of people from various backgrounds. The students, the white leftists, the housewives, guys from the street, anybody who was willing to get involved. Here's some other pictures of how we responded in terms of community organizing. You can see that's a picture of yours truly, far left corner. I was about 17 then, going around the neighborhood, talking to people in the neighborhood about the Black Panther Party's programs and projects. If you look at the bottom, we were doing a clothing drive, and we made the news. It said 125 youngsters given free clothing by the Black Panthers. So these are the kind of things that we would engage in to counter the narrative coming from the pigs, right? Our newspapers started to develop and it evolved and it became much more sophisticated. So you can see in the middle, those are 6 issues of the Black Panther Party's paper once we got to a certain level, as far as being able to write, to cover different issues, and to break down the different work and the different things that we need to do. Also, back in 1970, the chairman of the Black Panther Party, Chairman Bobby Seale, he was wise enough to put together some stuff, and we published our own book. And the book was called Seize the Time, right? It's the story of the Black Panther Party and UEP movement. And so that became a very popular book. A lot of people started to read it. So we had a way, again, to counter the narrative that was coming from the pigs. And on the right, that's also like in Philadelphia, a couple of comrades of mine from back in the day, both of whom are still living to this very day. The brother standing on the step with his arms stretched out, we called him Stretch. That was his nickname. And the other brother there, to his left, is a brother we used to call Big Herman. And he was the brother in charge of the distribution of the Black Panther newspaper. Big Herman was no joke. His name is now Brother Sultan. And he's still in Philadelphia. He did a lot of great work over the years. But he was no joke, man. Big Herm, you make sure, we got the papers, you got your bunch of papers, you had to go out and sell them, you had to do everything that you had to do. And then there's me again in the right, we're marching through the neighborhood, we're just doing some drills, trying to share some stuff with the young folks in the community. I think we were doing some drills around Free Huey, Free Bobby, because by this time I think Bobby Seale had also been incarcerated on some trumped up charges. So these are the kind of things that we used to do to counter the narrative. Serious community organizing, right? Serious community work. Also, this is another way that we responded. Remember, we talked about forming coalitions and building relationships with other groups and organizations. So, now this is something that I went to when I was a young boy. I didn't have a clue. I didn't know too much about jazz, but I was in the Panthers, and they was having a fundraiser. And, you know, this place called Electric Factory, I used to hear the older guys talk about it. It was real hip. This is like doing the hippie days and all that kind of stuff, right? But whenever the Black Panthers, whenever we came around, it was different. You know, I mean, like literally, whether it was something like this or whether it was a neighborhood house party, it was like Panthers in the house. We walk in, everybody want to dance and have fun and laugh, and we had fun and dance with them, you know. But this was a music festival, as you can see, Revolutionary Black Music Festival, right? And it was a fundraiser. And most of the music, as you can see, was from the jazz genre, which at that point in my life, I was like, for real, I'll tell you a little sidebar story. In the Panther office, you know, we all got along for the most part, but we had some conflicts, and one of the conflicts we would have sometime in the West Philly office is that after we would turn off the loudspeakers, because during the day, we had loudspeakers, and the people would hear speeches from Malcolm, you know, stuff like that, Black history stuff off. Then at night, we turn the joints off and we just play music. You know, for those who are old enough, you get the 45s and all that. So the older members of the party, when I say older, keep in mind the age range of the Black Panther Party, the youngest was like 14, 15, and the oldest would be like 34, 35 years old. So the older members of the party in our office, they want to put on Freddie Hubbard, Corey Tyner, people who I know and I respect now that I'm an older person, right? And, you know, all that. And me and my crew, we were still into, literally, and don't laugh, we were still into the Jackson 5, the Temptations, the Supremes, and all that. And we used to go at it, like, it's like, nah, I mean, listen to that tonight. We said, well, we don't want to hear y'all jazz stuff. We heard that last night. You know, so we should go through stuff like that. Because, again, the age range, it seemed like a million years back in those days, but it really wasn't. 14, 15, oldest person was about 34, 35. Right. And 14, 15 didn't preclude you, like 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, did not preclude you from being a leader within the Black Panther Party. That's the other thing. And just because you were an older person in your 30s or your late 20s didn't mean that you were automatically conferred leadership. You had to earn it. You had to earn it. And if you earned it, it didn't make any difference how old you were. And that's just how it was. So that's one example of how we responded by reaching out to the community, reaching out to the artistic community, having them join in this struggle, embrace the struggle, embrace the movement. As you can see, this is a fundraiser. It was a benefit, as you can see, a benefit to support the Black Panther Party Defense Fund, produced by the Black Panther Party, right? So in the middle, that's just a montage of a lot of our comrades who came from different formations. The Black Panther Party inspired other groups of people, especially people of color and poor people, to start very similar type of formations. So if you look up there, what you'll see that we had alliances and we had working relationships with the Young Lords Party, with the American Indian Movement, with the Brown Berets, right? With Cesar Chavez, and the Farm Workers Union, with the Young Patriots, which was a revolutionary radical group, white group, that actually, guess what their flag was? Their flag was the so-called Confederate flag. That would probably blow a lot of people's minds today, but that was their flag. These were young people who had came from the Appalachians. These are the young people whose grandparents had fought in the Civil War for the South. And they didn't have nothing before the war started, and they had less after the war came to an end. And so they migrated up to places like Chicago as well. And when they migrated up to places like Chicago, they came across people like Fred Hampton. And he was able to recruit and organize them. So if you look, the photo to your immediate right, that's a classic photo. There was a press conference where we were announcing up in Chicago the original Rainbow Coalition. Not just the Jackson's Rainbow Coalition, which he got from us. The original Rainbow Coalition came from Fred Hampton and Bobby Rush. Fred Hampton being the deputy chairman for the Black Panther Party, and Bobby Rush being the deputy minister for defense for the Illinois State Chapter. That's Bobby Rush you see, the tall black guy with the glasses that's standing up, that's Bobby Rush. Bobby Rush, by the way, not as radical as I would like for him to be, but he now serves in the U.S. Congress. He's been a congressman now, representing the district up in Illinois for the last couple of decades. Okay, so when you see there at the press conference, those are the Young Lords, the Black Panther Party, and the Young Patriots. So these are some examples in terms of how we responded to the need. We responded not with racism, we responded with unity. We responded not with foolishness, we responded with organization. So now I'm going to get into some examples of the applications of the lessons that I learned. What I just showed you for the most part were things from the 69, 67, 68, 70, all that. So I've gotten older and I continue to organize and, pursue the things that I thought that we needed. I started something in Pittsburgh called the Gang Peace Council of Western Pennsylvania. And then in turn, I became one of the co-founders for the national group, which was called the National Council for Urban Peace and Justice. And so when we all first got together, in 1993 up in Kansas City, Missouri. And then from then, we had several urban peace and justice, or what we call gang peace summits in different cities around the country. I'm going to tell you the story behind some of the photos that you're about to see and why it was so important for me and for us to utilize the skills that we had learned, that I had learned 2 decades before as a young member within the Black Panther Party. So, the photo to your immediate left. And I point right here. The photo, this photo here. This is a press conference we had up in Kansas City, Missouri. This was the National Urban Peace and Justice Summit, or what people refer to as the Gang Peace Summit. And it represented the coming together of gang members, former gang members, and community activists and clergy from all across the United States. And we held it about a year after the LA Rebellion, what people refer to as the LA Riots, right? And we held it in Kansas City, Missouri, because for us that represented the center. And so we had people from all the gangs that were active at that point that people knew about, the Crips, the Bloods, the Vice Lords, the GDs, the Mexican Mafia, the Texas Syndicate. Everybody was represented, right? And this is one of our press conferences. Now, this is not the press conference where we had to address this issue, but I put this up here just to illustrate. The issue was simply this, that the media, we believe, through the law enforcement community and through the local government up in Kansas City, was trying to manipulate the message that we were putting out there, right? And they were trying to manipulate a group of young brothers who belonged to a certain gang set up in Kansas City. So what they did, the day before we came there, or the day before we started our summit, because we had been there for a couple of days before. Some people had been there for a week before. But about a day before we started officially our summit, our Urban Peace and Justice Summit, a summit that's going to emphasize peace amongst these warring gang factions, they went out, found a set up in Kansas, did an interview with them, and had them basically denounce us, saying that, no, we don't think that's going to work, we don't want to be part of nothing like that, blah, 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 blah. So, our response to that is, When we did have our first media gathering, official media gathering, we chastised the media and then we dismissed them from our conference. We said, we're finished talking with y'all, we'll let you know if we ever want to meet with you again. And they kept trying to say, no, this is an historic event, and we told them all they had, we put them all out. And we had the power, or as one brother, his favorite term, muscle, we had the power and the muscle to do that. Because we had representatives there from every gang across the United States plus some. And they knew that. And there were people who would do anything that other people ordered or asked them to do. So when the media were told that they had to leave because they had been disrespectful to the spirit and to the theme of what we were trying to do with our young boys and young girls, they left. And we let them know, we will call you and let you know when it's time for you to come back again. Then the other thing that we did is we went out into the community, found young brothers who they had interviewed, the ones who had denounced us, went to their set and brought them back to our headquarters. And then we all put a circle around them and we had a talk with them. I can't get into the details of the talk because there's a statute of limitations. But I'll put it to you this way. You know what I'm talking about. Imagine you sitting there, you represent a little set up in Kansas City, and all the dudes are sitting around you, and they all are some of the head guys or representatives for the GBs and Vice Lords, various Crips, various Bloods, Mexican Mafia, Texas Syndicate, and they got you in the middle, and they all sitting around you, and they basically tell you, you better not ever do that again. That was it. And they agreed, and it was everything was cool after that point. But the lesson was, don't do that. Don't let yourself be used, don't let yourself be manipulated by our enemies and adversaries. We're trying to bring peace and stability to our communities and neighborhoods. We're trying to stop the bloodshed, right? Don't be so naive. So we also educated them. So they stayed with us for the next 3 or 4 days for the summit. They stayed with us. And we appointed people to be with them. To do what? To educate them politically. So they wouldn't be that naive and make those same mistakes again. But we did have to read them the riot act because they're young boys and they was trying to flex and they wanted to push back. And so guys had to remind them of who they were talking to. And once they got that reminder, then their ears opened up and their minds unclogged and they were willing to listen. All right, so this over here, a lesson learned. Gang Peace Summit up in Chicago. Different thing. In this particular situation, we had to deal, and this may not have been when we dealt with it officially, but this is one of our press conferences. We had a Gang Peace Summit up in Chicago, which, by the way, was interesting because in this Gang Peace Summit, the guests are honored with the boys from Pittsburgh. So we took some of the homies from Pittsburgh up there and to introduce them into the Gang Peace movement, right? And we stayed up we didn't stay, but we visited Cabrini Green. They had a big party up at Cabrini Green in honor of Pittsburgh, which was interesting. So we had Crips Bloods from Homewood, East Hills, North Side, where else? South Side, boys from Del Sur and all, it was very well represented. Homewood was very well represented. North Side, a lot of different people, right? We had to search everybody before we pulled off, before we got on the road. So we took them over to the University of Pittsburgh about 1 o'clock in the morning. And David Lawrence took them over there and searched everybody thoroughly. Then we reloaded everybody back into the vans. And it was a long ride from Pittsburgh to Chicago. Guys didn't want to talk to each other. If they wasn't from their particular clique, they didn't want to talk to them. We made a room together. And by the time we was coming back home, everybody was talking to everybody. Everybody was talking about they couldn't wait to come back to Pittsburgh. They was going to tell their homies, you got to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to start this program, we're going to stop killing each other, da, 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 da. It was deep. And guess what else we had to do up in Chicago? We had to get them away from Pittsburgh. they held a joint press conference up in Chicago. Boys who was fighting on the streets of Pittsburgh was up in Chicago having a joint press conference together, talking about how impressed they were and what they wanted to do when they came back home. And many of them did. When they came back home, they were the ones who were responsible for a lot of the work as far as trying to bring some peace and stability to these neighborhoods back in the mid-90s. But this situation, we had to deal with the media. Again, the media was trying to orchestrate a confrontation between our young brothers and another group. It wasn't a gang, it was a violence prevention group. I cannot remember their name. They wore the red berets. They started up in New York.
Guardian Angels.
The Guardian Angels. They was trying to orchestrate a confrontation between us and the Guardian Angels. And we got wind of it. And so we had to talk with the young brothers from Pittsburgh. The young brothers from Chicago, they had more disciplined instruction, right? But the young brothers from Pittsburgh, when they got wind of it, they was like, oh, we're going to jump on them. Well, the Guardian Angels were protesting and demonstrating in front of the hotel. When we pulled up, we were going to get off the van. They knew we were coming because it was a big thing up in Chicago. This gang, national gang, this something, right? So we pulled up, and we had to call them out and talk with them because they wanted to fight the Guardian Angels. And all the media was around anticipating it was going to be this big fight, right? Because that's what they wanted. So we had to address the media about that. You know, again, respect the work that we do, respect the integrity of our youth, right? They're trying to move away from the gang mentality, and you guys trying to reinforce it, right? So we had to deal with that. And here at home, well, I'll show this here. This is to the right. This is actually two pictures put together. The first up here, that's in Cleveland, Ohio. That was a rally we had up in Cleveland, Ohio. But we had a press conference here where we had to deal with some issues here. And the press conference, this is in San Antonio, Texas. We had a gang peace summit in San Antonio, which was an eye-opener for me because the work that we were doing, we worked with a group of young brothers and sisters. They belonged to a clique down in San Antonio called ETG, East Terrace Gangsters, right? But outside of them, most of the work involved young people from the Latino community. Because they had a real heavy Latino community down there that was deeply entrenched in the gang culture. And then kind of closing it, you see here, this is home in Pittsburgh. When we had the gang peace summit in Pittsburgh, again, press conferences dealing with all the controversy. A lot of people don't realize this. Now, this is 25 years ago. 25 years ago, Pittsburgh City Council actually took a vote as to whether or not they would support the gang peace summit, right? Reverend Dawkins supported us, but he was ill, so he couldn't actually cast his vote. He's the one who proposed that we get some money to help us do some programming. So he got the rest of the city council together. They gave us, I think, about $1,000, maybe $1,500 to do some programming.
That's a part of history we don't want to talk about.
A lot of people don't talk
We
about
don't
that.
talk
This
about
is
Dawkins.
real. Dawkins was on it.
He's a pillar on.
He was on it. He was on it. He was on it. So he supported us. But when it came to the vote, he couldn't be there because he was ill. And it was a crazy political situation. That had never happened before. No city government had ever taken the task of having a big conflict amongst themselves and actually going to vote as to whether or not they were going to support a certain conference or convention coming to their city. But they did that with us. So we had to deal with that. When we had the Gang Peace Summit here in Pittsburgh, we had people come from all around the country. We had people come from different parts of the world. We had people here from France, Iceland, Finland, everybody. And we had it on the north side down in Manchester. And every church in Manchester supported the summit. Everybody opened up their doors. So we had workshops and stuff in every church throughout Manchester's community. You know what I mean? So I mean, it was strong. And quite naturally, because of family and social relationships from the East End, from Homewood, they came through real strong. They came in big U-Haul trucks. They rolled through in big U-Haul trucks, full of them, right? And for one day, for a brief period of time, we had a conflict. We resolved the conflict, and guys came back the next day. They said, we serious, and they came back the next day. So these are some of the issues and struggles that we have to deal with in terms of the media. So, all power to the people. As you can see, we're still around. This was Black Panther Party. We had a reunion, and we have a reunion every year. But this is a reunion we had in 2011. Some of these brothers and sisters are no longer with us. Chairman Bobby Seale is still here. This is Chairman Bobby Seale right there. Right? Trying to think. This is the brother Stretch I was telling you about from Philly. Brother Sultan right there. He's still here. Big Herm. This is Brother Jamal. Jamal just wrote a book about a year ago called Panther Baby. He talks about his growth and his development within the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party. He was a very young Panther, such as myself. Now, in fact, Jamal was so young when he joined the Black Panther Party, he had to get permission from his parents. The Panthers came to his house to sit down and talk with his grandmother first. He wound up going to prison anyway, like a lot of us did. This is yours truly right here. This is the brother who started the Black Panther chapter up in Seattle. He's been to Pittsburgh several times to visit us. This is one of my favorite people from the Philadelphia chapter, this brother here. And just a lot of people here. Like I said, this is Brother Emory Douglas, who was the Minister of Culture. So when you see the Black Panther paper and all the artwork, that was the brother responsible for. Right? So some of these folks are still with us. There's some folks in this picture that are transitioned. Right? But this is from 2011. And last but not least, again, this is a couple of years ago. We had our 50th anniversary. This is in front of the Alameda County Courthouse, which was, for those who don't know, it was the site of several Free Huey rallies. And one of the most famous pictures you'll see is the Free Huey rally in front of Alameda County Courthouse with a lot of us when we were much younger, right? And whenever we have a reunion, if we have it in Oakland, this continues to be a place where we gather to take a group picture. Some of the folks from 2 years ago have transitioned, most notably, where's he at here? Big Man is in this picture somewhere, but Big Man has passed. Big Man was one of the original members of the Black Panther Party. The sixth, he was one of the original ones, and so he's transitioned, he's passed. Where is he at? I can't make him out on this group picture. Yours truly, they told me I had to turn my cap around, so I did. That's me right there. Let me see. It's a lot of us from the Philly chapter here. And when I came up here for the 50th, I represented Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. We had a dinner like an iron, some big, books. Sign your name, your chapter, and all that, who you were representing. So I signed mine, and there was nobody from Pittsburgh. I said, well, I'm representing the Philadelphia chapter of the Black Panther Party, and I'm representing the Pittsburgh chapter of the Black Panther Party. Which, by the way, Big Man, if I can find him here, Big Man, he sent me some stuff. He gave me some stuff, and he sent me some stuff, because we've been in touch with each other for years. We talk on the phone, he sent me different items and articles and all that. But he gave me a poster, and I think he sent me a poster of the official chapters and branches of the Black Panther Party. And because he's the one who corrected me, I said, no, I don't think we had one in Pittsburgh. I think we had the study group or the NCCF. He said, no, y'all had the chapter in Pittsburgh. So he sent me the official documents. And in Pennsylvania, the chapters were Philly, Pittsburgh, Erie, and Harrisburg. Those are the chapters. So this is it. So I hope there's something to be learned from this particular presentation. I hope I didn't overdo it and didn't oversaturate you guys with too much. Some people here could probably do this presentation just as well as I can. But if you have any questions, additional comments, let me take a seat, and I'll be more than happy to answer them the best way I can.
Does anyone have any questions for Khalid?
Christian Hughes. Nice to meet you. And it's always, for me, an honor to be in the presence of anyone from the Black Panther Party or anyone that was a part of course, our collective struggle and triumph as a people. So my question to you is, in this day where we have almost like, I guess maybe like the same kind of struggles, but they take on different faces, how would you suggest that we strategize and mobilize in ways that are cohesive, right? Because we got these people that want to do it this way, these people that want to do it this way. How did you manage that? How do you suggest we do that?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think first of all, we have to define not so much what we're fighting against, we got to define what we're fighting for. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in, because everyone's not fighting for the same thing, even though they're fighting against the same thing, right? So we're fighting against racism, we're fighting against poverty, we're fighting against ignorance, we're fighting against gentrification, we're fighting against police brutality. But what are we fighting for, right? What kind of world are we fighting to create? Are we fighting to just like find a little niche within the system? Or are we fighting for better space to position ourselves better within the system? Or are we fighting to create a whole different way of living, a whole different way of thinking, a different society? So in the Black Panther Party certainly is not perfect, and the Black Panther Party also went through certain periods of ideological development. The Black Panther Party would probably be looked upon at some point as not being as revolutionary as it was supposed to be or as it should have been. And I certainly think that's a valid criticism. But we have to be clear today about what we're fighting for, not just what we're fighting against. And, let me give you this example, and I like to refer to our ancestors, to my ancestors as well as some of my contemporaries, because the civil rights movement had ingredients of both. Some of the folks who were active in the civil rights movement, the traditional American civil rights movement or modern day civil rights movement, say from around 1954 on up to about, say, 1975. Some of those people would be my ancestors or my old years, and some of those people were actually my peers and my contemporaries, because I was part of that period. The civil rights movement was real clear about what it was fighting for. It was fighting to dismantle Jim Crow. You understand what I'm saying? It was fighting to dismantle Jim Crow. It was fighting to dismantle legalized forced segregation in public accommodations, in schools, housing, so forth and so on. That's what the goal was. We have to dismantle Jim Crow, right? We have yet to define what it is we're fighting for. Some people are fighting because they want the Democratic Party to take over the House and to take over the Senate, or to secure its power in the House and to take over the Senate and maybe take over the executive branch of government after 2020 election. Some people are actually fighting just for that. Some people are fighting to make sure that the black bourgeoisie, the black elite have better space within corporate America or within academia, right? That's what they're fighting for. Okay, now, I'm not trying to throw shade on them, but I'm saying we got to be clear what it is we're fighting for. So I'm not fighting to create better spaces for black Democrats. I'm not fighting for a black Democratic Party elite. I'm not fighting for the black bourgeoisie so they can make $250,000 a year instead of just making $150,000 a year. That's not what my battle is all about, right? My battle is for black freedom, black self-determination, and recognizing that should be part of a larger movement for human freedom, right? Okay, because, we were having this discussion some time back that if we win the war, right, but there's nothing left over from the war that's worth rewarding yourself with, because you can't eat the food, You can't drink the water, you can't breathe the air. We're talking about the climate, we're talking about the environment, right? So yeah, we want freedom, we want liberation, we want self-determination, but we know that at the end of the day, none of that is worth nothing if we don't have an earth, right, that's going to be suitable, that's going to be able to sustain human development and human growth. So we have to find a way to connect all of them, right? But first and foremost, fundamentally, my battle is against capitalism, it's against imperialism, and it's against white supremacy.